Richard Nixon was forced to resign. But do you know the real story behind it? Let's look into the real story of what happened. Let's start with the equality and look at what happened with Lincoln. Lincoln was killed because of a fight for equality, shot by a bigot because he brought equality to the people. Now let's look what happened to FDR.
Certain economic truths have become accepted as self-evident. A second Bill of Rights, under which a new basis of security and prosperity can be established for all, regardless of station or race or creed.
FDR wanted a second Bill of Rights that would basically make sure that the rich would have to share with the poor, and that every American would have the basic right to all of these things, including equal economic education, thereby setting the bar equality. Then along came JFK. He had some ideas on equality, and he had ideas on educational equality. That in order to make America equal, he'd have to do it with education. What happened to him? Well, he was killed. And on his deathbed, a CIA agent confessed that Kennedy was killed because of his beliefs on education. Then what about his brother? His brother came along, RFK, and he wanted equal institutions for the poor. Well, what will happen to Bobby? Well, he's also killed. So then, as we go through history, we're going to see that Richard Nixon was president, and there was a Watergate scandal. And the Watergate scandal was all dusted away, all cleared off, and then there was the election. How did he do in that election? Well, kind of looks like he won. There's an awful lot of red there. Very little blue. I guess we could call that a landslide. See, he won, and Watergate was forgotten. It was all dusted away. But then Richard Nixon, on the day after, wanted equal economic education.
First, I shall propose legislation that would call an immediate halt to all new busing orders by federal courts, a moratorium on new busing. And next, I shall propose a companion measure, the Equal Educational Opportunities Act of 1972. This act would require that every state or locality grant equal educational opportunity to every person, regardless of race, color, or national origin. For the first time in our history, the cherished American ideal of equality of educational opportunity would be affirmed in the law of the land by the elected representatives of the people in Congress.
You see, the haves don't want to share with the have-nots. They don't really want equality.
There are no sides. There's no Sunnis and Shiites. There's no Democrats and Republicans. There's only haves and have-nots.
So to silence the ideas of equal economic education, they dusted off all that Watergate stuff, brought it back up, grand jury, took everything down, and then they took Nixon down, made him resign. And why? Because he wanted equal economic education. You see, the rich people don't want to share with the poor. And you're not going to really hear this story. You see, there's a censorship going on. But what we need to recognize that until we have equal economic education, you see, anything else is just prejudice. Anything less is just prejudice. Equal economic education means that every American citizen born will get a quality education, the same type of education, thereby the dictates of where you were born, who your parents are, will not control your fate. It's not just about the haves and have-nots. Every American citizen would get a quality education. Now, we're only talking about public education here. We're not talking about private education. What you do with your money to send your child and you're paying the bill, that's your business. But public education, just like public water, public electricity, should be equal. The roads, all the public services should be equal. Equal economic education. Anything less is just prejudice. We should end this idea of having rich areas, poor areas. Every area should have equal economic education in order for us to be able to have equality and to stop being hypocrites. Because the Constitution says all men are created equal. How do you create a man? Through education. And until education is equal, we don't have equality. Equal economic education, anything less, is just prejudice.